pretty well determined that Florida State and Clemson, maybe a few others, are going to jump ship. So options are out there. We'll see what happens. We know Brent Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, wants UConn. Now the question is, do the TV networks want UConn to the Big 12? Do the presidents of the Big 12 want UConn? We'll see.
I've never heard you say need. You said they need to do this, and I've never heard you say, and we've had so many discussions about this topic, and I've always, in my mind, when I'm talking about people in this community that have grown up with this brand and the Big East, I do think of Bob Joyce in the corner of my mind, because you love the Big East.
Oh, I do.
And you love some of these matchups. Sure. Are you not concerned about that nostalgia or these relationships or these rivalries that we have really reunited in the last couple of years?
Look, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are now Big Ten schools. How weird is that?
Yeah.
How about the other rest of the Pac-12 schools that joined the Big 12? How about Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC now? Cal and Stanford are in the ACC. What difference does it make now what conference they're in? They just have to be amongst the players. Yeah, it would stink that if UConn were, leave the Big East, you'd leave a lot of rivalries behind, but you would gain some potentially with old friends. Hey, if they join the Big 12, you get Cincinnati and West Virginia right off the bat.
Right.
You may get, because who knows, again, what the ACC is going to look like in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some rumors that there might be some ACC teams not named Florida State or Clemson that might get sucked into the Big 12, and it might become a 24-team league with maybe BC or Syracuse being left out. How weird would that be? So there's so many moving parts to all this, and we're just kind of waiting to see what happens. I know Mike Anthony did a nice piece in Hearst, Connecticut newspapers yesterday. He talked to David Benedict. He would not comment on the talks with the Big 12, but he really got into it with NIL yesterday.
Well, I mean, the thing also, it's kind of salivating, I think, for baseball and basketball to get out of the Big East, and especially basketball. I mean, you go to the ACC or the Big 12, you're going to play some great schools, and so it's not the worst thing in the world to move football, get a huge check, because they're also voting on revenue sharing. And if that comes down, you don't want to be an independent school because you're not going to get anything.
Right.
So you have to be in a conference. You want to be in a conference. We just heard Mike Gundy going off on this about splitting up $100 million 103 ways between the football team. Mm-hmm. That kind of NIL strength, UConn would be in big trouble, even basketball-wise. So I don't understand. I know there's even politicians that are putting their noses into this. I agree with Bob. Let it come down. Let everything shake out, because, as Ben and I said yesterday, the new teams to the Big 12, they don't want any new partners. They don't want to share the revenue with UConn or anybody else. So they're going to vote no. So you have to get 12 of 16 votes right now. Not going to be easy for UConn to get into the Big 12.
No, regardless wherever the men go basketball-wise, they'll be fine, whether it be the ACC, the Big 12, or if they stay in the Big East. For the men, that's fine.
Point, right?
The women get an upgrade, massive upgrade.
Hell yes.
Either way, ACC or Big 12.
Baseball
gets a massive upgrade. Yep. Now if it's Big 12, you gotta figure out what you're gonna do with men's soccer, because Big 12 doesn't have men's soccer.
Ooh.
So that's one of them.
That's a good
but there
point.
are universities in that Big 12 that have.
And field hockey too. Some of the minor sports have less, but baseball, softball are there. But yes, it's that's part of the whole thing you have to figure out too, with how the other sports are going to get upgraded. But the two teams that would really get a massive upgrade would be women's basketball and baseball, in my opinion, regardless where they go. If they stay put, it is what it is. But again, there's still just so many things to figure out. And this thing is not just going to start and end with UConn. There's still a lot of moving parts of this whole puzzle.
I don't expect you to have any of these answers, because NIL money is somewhat secretive. It's a private thing for individuals that have agents. Like, I think you know a little bit about Page and AZ's deals, but you don't know everything, and that's not all public knowledge.
Right.
The NIL, when it comes to schools within conferences that do get these TV rights checks because of the rules changing, now they have a bigger pool of money to play with than a team that doesn't. Is that really the NIL conversation of this, where the Big 12 is going to have so much more funding on the back end because of their rights fees and everything that we know of, that on top of their own personal deals, that they will have more money to play with to get better athletes at Uconn.
Well, I'll just use the women's team as an example. I don't think Gino even mentions NIL to the incoming freshmen. Because if you're good enough, you'll get deals.
Right.
Paige and AZ are exhibits A and B of that. And Paige is, taking it all the way to the bank and using it for good things. Now, you remember Jim Moore, and I know you guys brought this up yesterday, after the Tennessee game last year, went on a rant that he needed it. Well, they went tenfold. I mean, going into last season was and this is in the story that Mike Anthony did, it was about $100,000. Well, this season, it's up between $1 million and $1.25 million. And
wasn't Ohio State's 20?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But, for an independent, not bad. And then
that's great.
And he said next year, and we might be able to talk, and we'll talk to him about this on the 7th, because he joins us for all the home games in the doghouse. They're going to double it next year. As he said, they're going to pour gas on it. They want to win in football because he's tired of being disrespected as a brand nationally because of football. They really want to invest in this. Now, do they have to expand wrench their field? I don't know if they have to just yet. They have an outstanding facility on campus. The practice facility is as good as anyone's in the country.
Totally agree. I wish people would realize that.
I mean, that's they're not. I'm not blowing smoke there.
Right.
It's really good, and they've done some massive upgrades to the locker rooms, the weight rooms, everything there, video centers for the kids, everything. So, and I know they're going to be putting some money into the rent, but right now, $40,000 I think is okay. You go sell it out every week. Get that demand for tickets, then you think about upgrading it, because they can add more seats to the ballpark.
Stop with the rent. 40,000 in the Big 12. They have 100,000 per game.
Some places, no, not every place. Not every place.
Undecided teams are not going to be like, oh yeah, we'll give them $50 million a year to put 40,000 in their building. No way.
True, but I would love to get 40,000.
Yeah, how about we start getting 40,000?
Yeah, I would like to get 20,000.
I'd like to get 20,000.
Yeah, if you make this.
So again, I think the 8 undecided teams are looking at what can you do for us.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, basketball, baseball, yeah, that's great. But football, yeah, we got to upgrade in the next 7 years big time.
All 16, and plus on top of the conversation, your football stadium can be great and all, but if you're an 0-12 team, that's going to be a great stadium.
Well, what's Kansas hold?
Right. Kansas has got a crappy football stadium.
Yes, and they have a crappy football program generally.
They've been better as of late.
But they've been in the Big 12 for a long time.
I'm aware of that.
And their grandfathered in, too. Mm-hmm. But this, this whole conversation, I think the linchpin is wins with the football team.
Absolutely.
Wins with the football team.
Absolutely.
Maryland on Saturday. We've got Merrimack after that. Then Duke coming up. I've said this for 3 years now. When it comes to Maryland versus Dukes, you're talking Big Ten, ACC. We got Wake Forest as well, ACC.
Syracuse.
You can blow out Merrimack if you want, and you should.
Mm-hmm.
But you really have to compete against these teams, because that, to me, is more proof to Cincinnati, UCF, and these haters of the Big 12 to Uconn that this team is going to be viable. This market is going to support it. They have to win some games.
I agree. No, totally. And they have an unprecedented 6-game homestand.
Yeah.
They have 7 home games this year. They have to win at least 5 of those home games this year if they're going to get to a bowl game. Steal a win at one of the big ones. Maryland, Duke, Syracuse. I mean, they should beat UMass. I think we get all on that. They better beat UMass.
Better.
And they play a UAB team that's coached by Trent Dilfer that's making strides.
Yeah,
I think they were like 4-8 last year. So that's a game that they can win. But they have to take care of business at home. Make that good first impression against Merrimack. Yes, they should beat Merrimack. They should hammer them.
Yeah.
But then you get FAU coming in, and then Rice and Buffalo and Temple. You've got to win, I think, 5 of those 7 games to have a chance to get to a bowl game.
And to win the fans over.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so they just added $30 million to Memorial Stadium in Kansas. They seat 77,500.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice.
So, but it took them $30 million to add on to 47,000. So
yes.
you were right.
And they can add at the rent. They can, for sure.
Kansas, though, has been good as of late, like the last 10 years. And the thing is, too, like, they're not winning the Big 12. They're somewhat competing. They're getting upsets. But the thing I'll tell you guys about Kansas football in the last 10, 15, 20 years, fun watch. They throw the ball all over the place.
Good
now,
point.
and they don't play much defense at all, but it is worth the watch to see 60 go on the board, even if you lose 63-60.
Right. Here's one of the things.
Right now, they've got them at 22 in the preseason polls.
They have made those strides.
Yeah.
And again, it's because that basketball school finally invested in that football program.
Right.
Listen, Alabama just spent like $50 million on their golf program.
Yeah.
So some of these schools, that's what we're talking about. Some of these schools have this extra money because of the conferences that they're in.
Correct.
Right. So here's one of the things that we have to warn UConn fans about.
What?
It's happened to BC. It's happened to Syracuse. You join Pittsburgh, for instance, even too. You join these leagues, it's going to be tougher to win conferences in any sport every year.
Yes.
You see that. I mean, BC has basically become irrelevant in most sports in the ACC.
Yeah.
Yes, occasionally they're pretty good at football.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally
They'll
they get to bowl games.
Yeah.
Syracuse should be pretty good this year in football, but they've become pretty much irrelevant in basketball.
Sad.
You know, they're a bubble team every year. So that's one of the things you have to caution against joining this. Yes, you may be great financially, but will you see the results on the field or on the court or on the ice? Those are big questions that to be determined.
Speaking of the ice, before we let them go, Arizona State's in the Big 12. They have a great hockey program.
They sure do.
Could that happen? Like I know hockey's not leaving Hockey East.
No way. No.
Could Arizona State join Hockey East?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think they're. I don't know if they're independent or in a
Just
conference
messing
out
with you
west,
two.
but they have a good. Yes, their hockey program in Arizona State's pretty darn good.
Right.
Yeah, it
All right,
is.
Bob, I had a question though. You helped us get Dwight Evans. We're going to replay Dwight Evans.
Oh,
for people
yeah.
who missed it the other day in the 4:00 hour. What made you a Red Sox fan growing up, and what did you think of that outfield in the 70s of Rice, Evans, and Fred Lynn?
All right. Well, I have to give credit to my late mother, Phyllis, who was a big Red Sox fan growing up. She loved watching Ted Williams play. Okay. And she got me hooked on the Red Sox. I think the first year I remember was 72. So that would be Fisk's rookie year, and he was Rookie of the Year in 72. I think, if I remember right, he had a grand slam against the Yankees early in 73. And that's when I really got hooked on the Red Sox. I mean, my first game was at Fenway in 72, Red Sox, White Sox. But we would go to a game every year. Fisk was my guy. And then, I'm 9 years old. This is 1975. It's Cooper and Yaz at first.
Yep.
Who am I thinking? Doug Griffin until Denny Doyle showed up in a trade mid-season.
Learned so much about
second
Denny
base.
Doyle this
Rick
week.
Burleson was a heck of a young shortstop. They had Rico at third. It was Rice and Yaz in left, Lynn in center, Evans and Carbo in right, and then you had that catching trio. And I say trio because Fisk was coming off a knee injury, and then he broke his arm in spring training, so he didn't play till June. It was Tim Blackwell and Bob Montgomery behind the plate till Fisk got back. So you had that young nucleus, but you had a really good veteran pitching staff. It was Tion, it was Bill Lee, it was Roger Cleveland, it was the guy in the glasses, Rick Wise.
Yep.
Young Roger Moret. They had Jim Willoughby coming out of the bullpen. I mean, this was a legit good young team, but they're battling the Yankees. They're battling the Orioles for the top spot in the East. They beat the A's in a 3-game series during the regular season, won the season series, and then go sweep the A's in the playoffs. And then it set up the World Series. I mean, it was a fantastic World Series. That's the first one that I really remember being a Red Sox fan as disappointment. But I really wasn't that disappointed because, yes, they're supposed to win championships. 78, boy, that hurts as bad as 86. Just from the standpoint of, yeah, they let a big lead go, but people don't remember. Yankees played 700 ball from the All-Star break on.
Yep.
They were incredible, and the Red Sox won 12 of 13 just to get to the playoff game. And I know Dwight was talking about right field before they put the boxes up to help protect the sun. And if next time we have him on, we got to talk about how Lou Piniella played right field in that playoff game. And it's not just the play on Jerry Remy that essentially saved the game in the ninth inning. He made a couple of tough plays in that sun in right field. I don't even remember if Dewey played that game because he got beamed like maybe a month beforehand in the back, and it shattered his helmet.
Right.
And he was dealing with vertigo and other issues for a couple of years. But, boy, that was such a fun team. And then in 86, hey, Dewey and Dewey and Rice were the veterans on those teams. But, boy, those outfields of Rice, Lynn, and Evans, that's as good as it gets. I mean, and he's right. I mean, there aren't too many outfield groups that played together for that long and were that good for that long. There's a lot of Gold Gloves out there.
Bob Joyce, also a Little League Little League umpire. Little League World Series just happened. I loved every minute of it. There were a couple of games I thought were the best baseball games of the year. Taiwan losing on the bunt from Florida.
That was a great bunt.
What were your pros and cons? You got any cons from the Little League World Series as an umpire yourself that deals with these kiddos all the time?
Some of the strike zones were a little big.
Oh, the strike zones were horrid. Horrible.
I don't have that big a strike zone for Little League.
Good.
If I keep it, my rule is for Little League, if as long as it's inside the batter's boxes, like the inside lines, you're good. That's what maybe a ball and a half out of the zone, Rob.
What about these kids that are standing on top of the inside part of the plate?
Yeah.
Like they're on the plate, man.
Taiwan did that very well.
Golly.
Japan did that very well. They knew what they were doing. Yeah, that annoys pitchers, trust me. I didn't like guys standing on the plate like that. Bob, always the best to have you on. God bless you, brother, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, and a shout-out, the little guy's 3 today.
Oh, the Bobster, the
birthday.
Robster. Is he listening?
No, he's probably getting picked up at daycare
Nap
right
time.
now.
Oh, man.
All right. We'll come back. We'll do First Dibs question of the day next.
91 southbound. Well, I